This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
We had an email about what constitutes fulfilling the commandment to keep holy the Lord's Day. And I referred to Pope John Paul II's apostolic letter, Dies Domini, which is Latin, which means the day of the Lord. I think a lot of people, first of all, are quite, I don't know if confused is the right word, but they just don't really know what's allowed and what's not allowed. What is something that you could do on a Sunday, the day of the Lord, or that you shouldn't do on the day of the Lord. And I've seen some different opinions floating around there, some of which are closer to the mark than others. So what I'm going to do right now is I went back into Dies Domini, and I spent the time and I went through and I distilled, I guess you might say, or summarized, what does Pope John Paul II have to say about what you can do and what you can't do on Sunday? I think people kind of need that sort of, well, give me some specifics. So here goes. So first of all, and this is in light of the third commandment to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's in Exodus 20, verse 8. Keeping in mind, of course, that Sunday is not the Sabbath day. Sunday is the first day. The Sabbath day refers to the seventh day of the week, Saturday. And that was the way to observe this commandment until the time of Jesus' resurrection. And the church, having been granted the authority by Jesus, transferred the observance of the Sabbath to the first day of the week, Sunday. That's why we go to Mass on Sunday. So you could talk about it as the Sabbath day because it's the same observation of the same commandment, but because Jesus rose from the dead on a Sunday, the church recognized, and that's probably the primary reason, there were a few others, but the primary reason the church said, we're going to observe the commandment on Sunday in honor of the Lord Jesus Christ because of his resurrection and so on. So that's the commandment, to keep it holy. Well, how do you keep it holy? So number one, this is what Pope John Paul II says. He says, your primary focus should be on the Holy Eucharist, and that means going to Mass on Sunday. It doesn't mean you have to receive Holy Communion. The Church doesn't require that you receive Holy Communion every Sunday. You can if you want to. It was the custom for many, many, many centuries, in fact, for the better part of Christian history, to receive Holy Communion only infrequently. I'm glad we can receive Holy Communion frequently, daily even if you can, but that's not a requirement. But what is a requirement, what you do have an obligation to do is to go to Mass, if it's possible for you. I mean, if you're sick or you have a sick child or you broke a leg and you can't hobble to Mass, I mean, there are reasons why you don't have to fulfill the obligation because you don't have the obligation if you can't go, if it's impossible, let's say. But if it's possible, then yes, you have a Sunday obligation. So number one, go to Mass. If you can, if you're prepared, receive the Holy Eucharist. The Pope says you should pray, not just at Mass, but pray as you would, and maybe even more so. Set aside some time to read the Holy Bible. Think about the Lord's working in your life, in your family, etc. It's also a time to engage in acts of mercy. So you may go help out at a soup kitchen. That's not work. That's an act of mercy or charity. You may do something else to help somebody in need. Now, what can't you do? Well, you shouldn't neglect Sunday Mass. You shouldn't see it as, well, this is just one thing I've got to do. It should be the center of your Sunday, going to Mass. Now, again, if you have some reason that would preclude that, and you're in the hospital or you're delivering a baby as a physician or something, that's different. But you don't want to make Sunday a kind of box that you check. People I know, they would only ever go to Mass on a Saturday evening, the Vigil Mass. The Church permits you to fulfill your Sunday obligation by going to Mass as a Vigil Mass. Yes, you can fulfill your Sunday obligation by going to Mass on Saturday evening, the Vigil Mass, but it doesn't help with fostering the spirit of this commandment to keep holy the Lord's Day. So it's not a matter of can I fulfill my Sunday obligation, but how are you approaching this? In other words, for some of the people that I've known over the years, they would do all their regular Saturday activities, go to the ball game, play a round of golf, go shopping, whatever. And then they would kind of fit Mass in at 5 p.m. and then they'd go out to a restaurant or whatnot. And then Sunday was given over to just fun and games and entertainment. And that's, I'm telling you, that is not the way to approach this issue. And Pope John Paul II lays it out. Secondly, so the first point is go to Mass and do the things spiritual reflection, prayer, etc. Second thing is, as Sunday, a day of rest, you should rest. So what is permitted? You can rest from all the work that's burdensome or things that interfere with your family life, work that might take you away from worship and relaxation. You can recreate. You can go have a family picnic. Some people say, can I go to a restaurant? I'll get to that in a minute. But things that involve family, and if you don't have family, just things that involve, you can take a walk, you can enjoy nature, you can, do things that rejuvenate you. And the more, of course, that is focused on God and the things of God, the better. What can't you do? So here's what he says. Number one, no unnecessary work. If you said, well, I got to have my taxes done by Wednesday, and this is Sunday, and I really want to get a jump on my taxes, that's unnecessary work. And you just don't do your taxes, get up early or stay up late on Monday and do the taxes then. You may say, well, we didn't get the leaves raked and we didn't get the lawn mowed, and it's going to rain on Tuesday. I'd really like to get it done today. No, don't mow your lawn, don't rake your leaves. That's unnecessary work that you could have done before or you can do tomorrow. Don't do it on Sunday. He also talks specifically in the area of what's not permitted. He says commercial activities. So he talks about buying and selling, doing things in which you're, transacting business, let's say. So if you have a business, I'm thinking about Chick-fil-A right now, they're closed on Sunday. And they're more or less unique in that regard. Very, very few that I can't even think of another major corporation that doesn't stay open on a Sunday aside from Chick-fil-A. And I know there are people who are going to write to me and say, well, Patrick, you forgot about this. I understand there probably are some out there, but isn't it true that when it comes to commercial activity, most businesses, especially in the service industry, are open on Sunday? Chick-fil-A isn't. And the reason for not being open on Sunday is they want to honor the Lord's Day. So Pope John Paul II doesn't give a specific example. He doesn't say you can't go to a restaurant and have a nice Sunday meal. He doesn't say that you can't go to the grocery store to pick up food for the evening meal. But I think the spirit of what he does say is if you already have your groceries and you don't need to buy anything for your evening meal and you can always do your weekly shopping on Monday, then don't do it on Sunday. That's what he's driving at. If there is going to be a big family get-together and you're going to go to Cracker Barrel or, wherever you're going to go, that too, he doesn't rule that out. He doesn't say you cannot go to a restaurant and enjoy a meal, but he's saying if you can defer things like that and, if possible, avoid like commercial activities, buying and selling, that's what you should do. Now, that gets us into the question of what if you have a job that requires you to work on Sunday? What about that? Well, he talks about the same thing, that if it's necessary and you're required by your job to do this, you're delivering babies as an OBGYN and babies are born on Sundays, well, that's fine. You can do that. It's necessary work. It's not servile work. Let's say that you have a job that requires you to work on Sunday and you've asked, can I please have Sundays off? And they say, I'm sorry, we don't have a shift that will give you Sundays off. The basic minimum would be that you make an effort to avoid working on Sunday. And if it's not possible, it's not possible. If you're an airline pilot or what have you, and it's not possible to avoid work on Sunday, the Lord understands. You're not offending against the commandment. But if your boss says, hey, you can have Sundays off if you want, and you said, well, no, I'd rather get overtime. I'd rather get paid more money if I work on Sunday. That would be an infringement. That would cross the line, if you ask me. The third category is, and again, all of this is from Pope John Paul II, he says that this is a family day. So he says things that you can do on a Sunday would include your family gatherings, people come over for meals, you're all going to go do something fun. Maybe there's something going on at the parish, and it's kind of like your family subsumed into the bigger family, the parish family. That's all great. You can do all that. As a family, if you wanted to do acts of charity, you can do that. So he's placing an emphasis on family togetherness, not everybody scattering in different directions. And I think this bears some underscoring here. If soccer or little league or dance or piano or something is falling on a Sunday rather, don't miss Mass. Don't miss Mass. Put God first. And if you need to rejigger things and get your kid into a sport or something that doesn't require a crazy schedule on a Sunday where you have to choose between that or missing Mass, then rejigger the schedule. So what can't you do in this category? This would be Sunday as a day for family. So things that isolate you. So if you're just going to go off on your own and your family is, let's say that, your family is going to have a backyard barbecue or you're going to some other family activity, and you say, I'm just going to go up in my office or up in my room and I'm going to play a computer game. No, don't do that. Stay with your family. Focus on your family. And maybe your kids are all grown and you don't have family, or maybe you're alone. It doesn't mean that you have to go find a family, but if you wanted to, that would be a way to, maybe visit a neighbor who might be elderly or a widow or widower, things like that. So try to focus on family as much as you can. Then the fourth category from Pope John Paul II's Dies Domini is he talks about what you can do for the community. So things you can do for the community. You could do something that helps other people. Let's say that there is, we talked about a soup kitchen, for example, or a clothing drive to help people who don't have a way to support themselves, or visiting people who are in a rest home. We can think of a million examples. These are all things that you can do, and that's not work. Your own personal hobbies or things that are recreational for you, that restore your energy, that rejuvenate you and kind of get you ready for the work week and all that. That's fine. You want to go play a round of tennis or a round of golf, or you want to go toss the football around. Those are all fine things to do, Pope John Paul II says. But he gets back to now, in this case, the hunger, the lust even for entertainment. He says, and I agree with him 100% here, he says that not only should you postpone work that is unnecessary to be done on Sunday, you should also avoid what he refers to as, quote, excessive consumption or excessive entertainment or secular distractions. These are all terms that he uses that can remove or deface the sacred nature of Sunday. And when I read that, and for the 10th time and I reread it, I thought to myself, what about Super Bowl Sunday? And that to me is a great example of where you have to make a kind of a judgment call. Super Bowl Sunday, it's a lot of fun. People have parties, as you know, but isn't it true that it is kind of it's not kind of, but it is a form of entertainment that can be, for some people at least, excessive to the point where they might miss Mass, even though the Super Bowl games typically happen late in the day. So I would just say, as I read Pope John Paul II, I would say Super Bowl Sunday is fine as long as you go to Mass, as long as you devote time to rest and recreation. And let's face it, when you go to a Super Bowl party, that is a form of recreation. And chances are some of your family may be there, or maybe you're the one throwing the party. So he doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. He just says, don't devote Sunday to frivolous, secular entertainment, no focus on God, no focus on rest, no focus on family. He says, avoid those kinds of things. And then the last couple, very briefly, he says you should have a balance of work and rest. So you should take time on Sunday to avoid, the shopping and the consumption and the entertainment and all these other distractions, and just give some of that time over to rest and make it the spirit of the day. And then lastly, he says, don't forget that Sunday worship is something distinct about being Catholic. This is distinctive, and it's not only for your own knowledge, your own way of looking at yourself and your relationship to Jesus, but he says it's also a sign to the secular world that you as a Catholic, you as a follower of Jesus, that you really take seriously not only the commandment, but also what Jesus did by rising from the dead on Sunday. So he said, when you follow these principles and guidelines that he's laying out, you will find that other people will notice it. And he's not saying do it for the sake of being noticed, but he's saying that that's a beneficial byproduct. It's a value added. If you are living out in a faithful and conscientious way what the Lord is calling you to do when it comes to Sunday rest, etc., other people will notice it and you are actually evangelizing them. So that's the value added at the end of all this. Now, as I say, if you wanted to read the whole thing, you can, and you can, in the space of about an hour or so, you could read the whole thing. But I thought it would be helpful to give you this kind of synopsis or breakdown. You can join me by listening to The Patrick Madrid Show on the Relevant Radio app, live each weekday at 8 to 11 a.m. And thanks for listening.